Hello there, friends. This is Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about pickups for Week 6. There are some good names on here. You definitely need to know about them. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about players I had deemed as regression candidates versus players I had deemed as bounce-back candidates. So that's definitely something to watch, and we're going to do it right now. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick Podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick coming at you from the Fantasy Maverick Podcast, and today I am broadcasting from Moab, Utah. Yes, I actually got out of my house, I got out of my town, and I am now enjoying a long weekend here in Moab, enjoying the sights. This is a beautiful place. If you've never been, you got to come and check it out. Arches National Monument is one of my very favorite national parks. It is so striking and beautiful, you just wouldn't believe it. And of course, the weather is perfect out here right now. At this time of year, highs are in the mid to high 70s, just beautiful. So just really enjoying it. I don't think you can see behind me, but there's beautiful rock formations, red rock everywhere, steep cliffs. We're right along the edges of the Colorado River. And anyway, it's just a wonderful place to be. I'm happy to be here. And this is going to be a quick podcast because I want to get back to enjoying my vacation. But obviously, we are done with Week 5, almost. We got a game tonight. I don't know what's going to happen there. But before we talk about the waiver wire pickups for this week, I want to talk to you about regression players. Now, in my app, I tagged a number of players with regression, and my top 10 regression players consisted of Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Michael Thomas, Aaron Jones, Lamar Jackson, Amari Cooper, Mark Andrews, Mark Ingram, Dak Prescott, and Devontae Parker. Now, so far, what we have seen happen this year is 5 out of the 10 people have, well, a lot of it's been injuries, but a lot of it's just been underperformance, like Lamar Jackson. I don't know what's going on there. He is not doing what he did last year, but that was a risk that I said was going to be very big this year when it came to him. Now, we'll see what happens with these other 5. The other 5 are doing pretty good. You know, like Henry's having a good season. Aaron Jones is having a great season. Amari Cooper's been great, but now there's a quarterback change. What's going to happen there? And Mark Andrews has done great despite Lamar Jackson's difficulties. So that's interesting. But on the flip side, I also had players tagged as bounce-back candidates. And my top 10 bounce-back candidates included Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Adam Thielen, Robert Woods, Kareem Hunt, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, and Robbie Anderson. Now, of that group, only 2 players have really busted out, and one was Barkley, who just suffered a season-ending injury, so nothing much you can do about that. Matt Ryan is really the only dud in that group. So, again, I really like the fact that my app really kind of pointed these guys out, and as opposed to the relative risk of both. And I'm glad to see that my bounce-back group is doing so well, and sorry to see that the regression candidates are, you know, like I said, it's been like almost a 50-50 chance of a bust there, and that's very, very high. So something to consider for next year when you're doing your drafts. Now, let's move on to the pickups for this week. So obviously the big pickup comes from the season-ending injury to Dak Prescott, but I got to say, man, Andy Dalton, he's on the best offense of his entire career. He's got so much excellent talent in the skill positions right now that I think he is going to be a QB1 going forward. And so he is absolutely worth a pickup, especially if you've got guys like Matt Ryan or of course, Dak Prescott or some other quarterbacks that are really struggling right now. So I think he is absolutely worth a targeted pickup if your quarterback has been generally disappointing you. So there's so many options out there. Again, I never roster a second quarterback. I just roll with one, and then I just pick guys off the waiver wire as I need them. If you have a quarterback that's struggling, I think Dalton is a great player for you to target. Now let's move on to running backs. There's not a lot of running backs on the pickup this week, and it's always like this. You know, the wide receiver group is pretty good, but running backs, again, very, very thin position. This is why I always go heavy on running backs during the draft, go with as much depth as I possibly can in the running back position. But there are some good options here, and I think the first big option is Alexander Mattison, who had a great day on Sunday after Cook went down with that groin injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out, but we always knew that should anything happen to Dalvin Cook, a low reliability player, that Alexander Mattison is an RB1, and that's what I expect to see here. I've seen some early reports saying that maybe it's not as bad for Dalvin Cook as I thought, but I think at least this next week I think Mattison is a startable asset, and we'll see what happens going forward. But my next name, also a guy who hasn't done much so far this year, but he did great on Sunday, Justin Jackson. Who has really kind of taken over the main running back position now that Austin Eckler is out. Justin Jackson out-touched and outplayed Joshua Kelly. Kelly's really faded. That's too bad, because he started out so strong. But like I said, I think he is absolutely worth a pickup onto your team as well. Finally, Rex Burkhead is a guy that you're going to find available on a lot of waiver wires. And, you're always totally rolling the dice with the New England backfield. But I think he's absolutely worth a pickup. Sony Michel is still injured, so that whole thing is still going on. You're never really going to know for sure who's going to be the running back you want in New England, but I think he's absolutely worth a pickup. So next up, let's move on to wide receivers. And there's some actually really good wide receivers, which I think you need to look at acquiring for your fantasy team. We've got a lot of disappointing receivers out there that haven't done much. If you have one of those receivers, someone that has just been really underperforming this year, I think you need to swap them out with one of these guys. And there's some good options. First of all, Chase Claypool, whose value rocketed up with Deontay Johnson's injury. He got 3 touchdowns last week, just unbelievable performance, and he is absolutely a wide receiver 1 going forward as long as Deontay Johnson is out. So I think he should be one of your primary targets for Week 6. I also like Travis Fulgham of Philadelphia, who had 13 targets. Philly just devastated by receiver injuries. They've got nobody there. He had more than twice as many targets as any other player on that team last week. And so just unbelievable amount of volume and opportunity with Travis Fulgham. So I think he absolutely is worth a pick for your team. Another one a guy who got dropped en masse last week because he got 0 fantasy points, but Brandon Cooks all of a sudden came out, got 12 targets last week. Just amazing. Now, I don't think I could trust Brandon Cooks to start like these other 2 guys. If I get him, I would start him next week. But Brandon Cooks is definitely worth an acquisition. Get him onto your bench and just wait and see. It's really a tough call. Houston is a mess. They fired their coach, everything else. Anyway, I think that portends to good things, and to get him for free off the waiver wire, that's perfect, right? One more wide receiver who I really, really like, and it is on the worst team in the NFL, the New York Jets. It's Jeff Smitty, I guess it is. Hold on here. All right, this is hilarious. My handwriting is so bad. It's just Jeff Smith of the New York Jets. He's gotten 20 targets in the past 2 weeks, and he is stuck on a terrible offense that's going to be in garbage time the whole time for the whole game. So that portends to a lot of volume, and again, another receiving core absolutely devastated with injuries. So anyway, Jeff Smith, another wide receiver. So great wide receivers this week on the waiver wire. For tight ends, I think one that you need to look at is Trey Burton, who has led the Indy tight ends in routes and targets over the past 2 weeks. The volume's not great. It's only, I think he got 6 targets last week, so it's not great. But you might be desperate at tight end. There's a lot of tight ends that have big question marks. Like Dalton Schultz is now all of a sudden a huge question mark now that Dak Prescott is injured. And there's a few others that have just been, extremely disappointing. Like if you happen to have any of the Tampa Bay tight ends. So he might be worth picking up. I'm not sure I would start him unless you're absolutely desperate to start a tight end. And then finally for defenses, I love to stream defenses. That is, that's primarily what I do. They're usually my second to last pick in any draft. But Miami, who was totally shocked that Miami dominated the Niners last week, just completely dominated them, and now they get the Jets. It's perfect. It's a beautiful thing. I totally trust the matchup here. I would absolutely start Miami. They're going to have a huge week, so that is another priority target. If you stream your defenses, that's a great pickup. So anyway, man, that's it for this week's for this podcast. I am going to be doing my podcast with Swami on Thursday, looking at the matchups as well as the starts and sits. So anyway, definitely tune in for that. But for right now, I'm going to go back to enjoying my weekend. I've been having a great time doing some great hikes with the family. Today we did some rock climbing. It was awesome. Like I said, Moab's one of my favorite places to go visit, and a great place for camping. But don't come in the summertime. I usually come in May. May is a great time to come, and October is pretty darn nice. It is beautiful out here. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, although I am kind of out of hat right now until Thursday. But anyway, please, let me know if you got any questions about any of these players, but get some waiver ads on these guys I'm telling you about today. They're definitely going to help your team. All right, so thank you very much, everybody. Have yourself a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.